Unless you've been living under a rock recently, you'd be aware that NVIDIA just recently announced their 50 series RTX card. And with that came some seriously bold claims. But they're not necessarily true. And here's why. Now, in order to know what I'm talking about, we need to go back to the release of one of the best GTX cards ever, really, the 1080 Ti. You see, when the 1080 Ti released 7 years ago, it superseded the 980 Ti. And well, for an extra $50, you actually got quite an overwhelming amount of power performance increase. In fact, you actually got up to an average of 70% performance. And this is before the use of DLSS and FG. And look, by the off chance that you don't know, DLSS is just simply deep learning super sampling, which is just a fancy way of saying AI. And FG just stands for frame generation. What this basically means is that your GPU is no longer using hardware, it's using software and taking frames A and C and utilizing that to generate frames B. Now, with all this being said, let's jump into the computer and actually take a look at the raw hardware specs, or FPS, it generates for the 5090 and the 4090. And wow, would you look at that, we can only see an increase of 7 to 8 FPS with raw hardware performance. So we just witnessed more stable FPS for the 4090, sitting around that 20 FPS mark than the 5090 that was fluctuating quite a fair bit. But however, there was a 40% increase in the performance power to the 5090.
With the Blackwell family RTX5070, 4090 performance at 549.
That's not even a 5070's performance. That was a 5090. Remember that. And well, this takes me back to the conversation about the 1080 Ti and the 9080 Ti. What happened to the days where I was spending $50 US on 70% raw hardware performance increases and well-developed games? You see, that was the pinnacle of gaming, and that was the pinnacle of performance. What happened to it? We didn't rely on AI to fix bad development and bad GPUs or performance. And you may be asking me, DLSS can't be that bad, can it? But let's actually take a look, because it's not really that red hot. What you're seeing here is no DLSS on a 40 series card, and if we bring in the DLSS on that 40 series card, you can instantly see frames stuttering unless we zoom in close. Now let's pull up an image of a 911 in the exact same spot, just with DLSS on and off. Instantly you can see the non-DLSS image is miles ahead in terms of raw quality conditions. It has more attitude, a rougher paint, finger-stained chrome bumper, the rock flick-ups and dents. It has more character to it, versus the DLSS, which has been smoothed out due to the AI frame generation it has. And let's say for some reason you don't believe me, Linus Tech Tips literally got to test the 5090 with NVIDIA on their announce. And here's a clip from his video.
Of how DLSS 4 doesn't handle everything perfectly. See the way this text kind of jitters and blurs if I move around? It's not as clear as the rest of the frame. See, it's okay if I do it, it's okay if I strafe. And I've noticed some instances of particularly bright or high contrast objects having little ghosts on them.
Now am I saying don't get this graphics card? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is be a little bit more wise with what you're picking up, especially if you already have a 40 series card. Is the 50 series really for you? Probably not. But that's not to say there is some serious hardware improvements. I mean, the 5090, we're talking about 1.8 terabytes per second with our memory speeds compared to the previous 1 terabyte. We're talking transistors improved. We're talking CUDA cores have also gone up, and the TDP. In fact, the base memory we get is also 32 now compared to the latter. So we do see some hardware improvements. Is it worth the extra 500 USD in my opinion? Probably not. Not unless you're a Blender freak who's out there making 3D models. No. Because in the past, I've seen pure hardware performance increase of up to 70% and cost less. The last time I saw an increase like this for some serious money was between the 1080 and the 2080 Ti. The improvements weren't valid for the money it was costing.